Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our wonderful kinda sorta weekly live stream of where me hold on a second. I just realized I had my volume on and I just heard my voice go back to me. So yeah, that's in the intro. You might have heard me twice, you might not have. I'm not quite sure, but I just heard myself and it is freaking weird. Anyways, I just got a big load of noise over here. Um, the episode that we are currently talking about, the most recent Samurai Jack episode, Samurai Jack episode 8.
That's right.
XC rated XCIX, though it should have been rated based on the content, it should have been triple X. Hold on one second. Someone left my freaking door open. I'll be right back, I swear. Okay, I'm back. Someone left the door open and I was getting a lot of noise. Okay, so this Todd, this episode is this is the shipping episode.
Oh yeah. Well, it's not just the shipping episode. It's the hey guys, we're on Adult Swim now episode.
Yeah, so
They did everything they could so that you would not forget about it.
Yes. Yes,
So any of you out there who forgot that this was on Adult Swim, you completely missed the point. Remember, guys, this is on Adult Swim, and that's the most important thing. Not the characters, not the story. It's the fact that we can make dick jokes and have Ashi naked and stuff.
Yeah, all the while,
and have Ashi and Jack weirdly panting towards each other.
Yeah, all the while using the same plot line as an episode Wander Over Yonder, I should mention. Yeah, the Todd. Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose they're both alien parodies, but yeah. Heads up, just as per usual, this is going to be spoilery. This stream is meant primarily for adults, so there's going to be a bit of cussing here, but you guys already knew that. Anyways, this episode starts with an alien spaceship crash landing onto Earth, and in a prologue, there's not really much to talk about there. It took a lot longer than in the actual episode than it did for me to actually say it. After that, we see Jack and Ashi in a Arabian inspired desert land. There is a walrus character voiced by Zoidberg. Shoot, why did I forget his name? The guy from Futurama. The guy who plays like half the characters on there.
That one guy.
Zoidberg voice actor. Billy West. Okay, that's his name. Yeah, they had Billy West, and it was obviously Zoidberg. And yeah, he offers food to Jack and Ashi. Ashi is a little bit hesitant to try the food, but Jack takes it anyways. His head turns into a vagina fish head. Honestly, I didn't catch the vagina look until everybody else pointed it out, but everybody is saying it looks like a vagina fish head, and yes, it kind of does. Are you there?
Hey, we good?
Okay, something happened?
Yeah, you've kind of phased in and out.
Okay, what's the last thing you heard me say?
I mean, it was only for like a couple of seconds. But did you see me go away?
I think I heard you go away for a little bit. See, this is
All right.
exactly
Well,
what.
I'm having some trouble hearing you, so I'm gonna hang up and call you again.
Okay. Um. Okay. I can't really stop the call unless that stops the stream.
Okay.
But go ahead, see what happens. If not, I'll just start a new stream.
I'm still having some trouble hearing you, but it's not like impossible. We can work around it.
Okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, minor technical difficulties. Everything is going fine. We're just going to continue on as we were expecting. So, I'm assuming the last thing everybody heard me say, if everything is coming out correctly and as everything is streaming correctly, is Samurai Jack's head was turned into a vagina fish. I didn't notice the vagina fish until everybody pointed out that yes, it's a vagina looking thing. And once you realize that, you cannot realize that, and not helping the. And well, later on in the episode, doesn't exactly make the episode doesn't exactly make that look any less relevant. You have any thoughts on that before I go on?
Well, it may or may not be important. There's a theory out there that the entire episode is sort of is just a joke, is sort of like a hallucin it's sort of like it's sort of like an illusion or some sort of hallucination on Jack or Ashi's behalf. There's a and so Jack eating the food may or may not be important later. It may be just be a throwaway joke with a vagina fish. It could be, once again, haha, we can have a vagina fish because we're on Adult Swim. This is the episode where we throw that in your face. But I don't know. There's no telling. We'll see if that theory is true or if the episode is a real episode or not.
Yeah. Okay, so after the samurai's head turns into a vagina fish, they board a camel that is being driven by a giant camel that is being driven by a smaller camel at the top, which I thought was really creative. Giant camel. I wish I had more to say about it. I liked it. I like these weird alien designs that they always do.
Yeah, me too. The weird basketball cats were fun. I guess they were more like watermelon cats. I forgot they were green.
Yeah, they were.
That's what they remind me of.
Yeah, and then they had them until they inexplicably had numbers. Letters on all of them. These letters ended up forming themselves into Die Samurai Jack and various other things.
Can you imagine how difficult it would be to just be totally reliant on your fellow man to just complete one sentence?
That was planned on their part, and Jack somehow had to figure it out. That is very convoluted, but I love it.
Yeah, me too. I think that was one of my favorite parts of the episode. Obviously, considering this episode.
Yeah, the
good episode, and the beautiful backgrounds, but the content, which we'll get to as we go on. Yeah. So he fights the watermelon cats with and he takes them down fairly quickly. But this was just before this was one of the I guess I'll call them flag scenes just for no other just to point them out. This was one of the flag scenes where they did the thing where they just kept on trying to touch the pole, but they touched each other's hands instead, and it was vaguely it was like kind of half a dick joke, but they couldn't take it all the way.
Oh, something's poking me.
Oh yeah, the sword. Yeah,
it's a sword. The temperature seems to be rising, as is something else.
Which it was funny, but it was a bit much in my opinion.
I mean,
it just wasn't the Samurai Jack episode I wanted to see.
Yeah, for what it's worth, given them and I think this is a good place to talk about this. When it comes to this particular episode and all of this flirtation, all of this awkward sexual things throughout the entire episode. Um, it was weird. I'm not
Yeah.
going to. I'm now. I myself am not going to say that I didn't like it. This was a Samurai Jack episode, and considering that the show is already has a pretty good is already pretty good at what it does. I'm not. I
Mhm.
can't exactly say I'm like disappointed with this episode, but it is not what I was expecting, and also I don't think it's what anybody was exactly wanting,
Right.
like from an episode. And
I almost kind of wish we did have someone on the show who would just who just loved the episode, more than we did, so that there would be kind of more of a balance. But I can't bring myself to defend this episode. There were so many of those little awkward like flag moments, those little awkward moments, um, that they all lasted too long, and it wasn't especially funny. And I it could just be confirmation bias, and the way people naturally surround themselves with people
oh shoot, you just went out. Oh, hey, pros and cons guy, if I'm still being heard by you. Um the romance Scrooge, I'm not sure if I'm too much at liberty to talk about what happened with her. What I can say is that she's moving on to bigger and better things, and I'm going to I think a lot of people are going to miss her channel, but
Did you
um
notice
she
that you cut out again,
yeah, I
or that
noticed
I
you.
cut out?
Yeah, that's
Either
the reason.
or.
Yeah, you cut out, which is why I started answering a pros and cons guy's question.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm too much at liberty to go into details, but I know the romance Scrooge is what's called, she wants to do bigger and better things, and um uh and in order to do what she wants to do, she kind of had to quit her YouTube, and she had to cool it down with the social media. She will be missed. She will be missed, of course, but it's her life. Just yeah, letting you know right now. And yeah, I've been getting a lot of comments about this with the romance Scrooge. Okay, so what was I saying before you cut out?
We were talking about how this episode wasn't really what anyone wanted.
Oh yeah,
What was the
this
last thing you heard me say? Because I think I'd cut out mid sentence.
um it's called these flag moments.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really I really said it could, like I was just saying that it could be confirmation bias, or and sort of the way people naturally surround themselves with people like them. So I mean, the fact that I don't really didn't want this relationship to develop the way it was, it probably puts a bias. It probably just shows my own bias, but I never really knew anyone who wanted that sort of relationship to develop between them. And I mean, just all the scenes just went on a bit too long, and they weren't quite funny, and they weren't quite exciting. And I don't know. I'm not really sure what they're going for. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might be a little bit more fond of these moments. Like I said, I didn't want these moments, but for what they did and how they did it, it worked for me. It worked well enough, just in my personal opinion.
Okay.
Just the one of the biggest things is, even though, like I said, I did not want this to happen, they were not the entire Jack Ashi ship thing wasn't exactly something I was looking forward. Um, I do have to say that the scenes of awkwardness, the way they played out, it could have been a lot worse.
I
There
guess.
could like into straight up unfortunate implications territory. And here, what we have is a relationship that isn't one sided. Both characters clearly like the other person, and both characters are clearly flirting with the other person. And I've seen things where um, the relationship almost seems one sided at the very beginning, and it goes into some very creepy territory. And I'm
You're
just
right.
happy it didn't go in that direction.
You've convinced me it could have gone
Um,
a lot worse.
and Jack's awkwardness, it's relatable. It's not like it's not the it's not the worst thing they could have done. Um, so Jack and Ashi, they run off they eventually have to escape from that giant camel. They do so by stealing the reins from the tiny camel who is driving the large camel, which um I feel sorry for the guy. The guy was just doing his job. Yeesh. And then we never see what happens to them after the fact. The guy probably had to like pull up all the things, and he also probably has to deal with all of those watermelon tigers now. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Feel
Yeah,
sorry for him.
poor guy.
Yeah. Jack and Ashi get to an oasis. They make hats there. Really, this scene in specific, not much really happens except for this is supposedly the scene where they're trying to show that these two characters actually have chemistry with the oasis, and they're building things, which I don't know. You have any thoughts on that?
Well,
This is
I guess I would rather them build chemistry than not build chemistry, but I don't see
yeah.
why they needed just like a single episode to do this. Up until there's, the people were rooting for the Ashi Jack sort of father daughter relationship for a reason. It wasn't because people are, well, I mean, people are pretty hungry for platonic relationships in general. I feel like, but it wasn't just that. It was that the every episode before this sort of had that implication of a platonic friendship. And it's I guess my only beef is that they crammed all of this into one episode. Like, why do we need a single episode for just the relationship? If they had sort of salt and peppered it throughout the series, it might not have been so frustrating. It might not have been so glaring. Just flag after flag.
Now, I will say this. Some people have mentioned that there has been some foreshadowing in this series for this. I didn't read any of this as foreshadowing for the record, but some of the things that I'm seeing frequently cited as the relationship thing
Mm-hmm.
is what were you expecting? A hug and a kiss? From the episode with the giant worm. Um there's also the entire Freudian imagery from our first stream together that I mentioned.
Which one was
Though
that?
the Freudian imagery where Jack comes in. It's called Jack dives into the sea practically naked, comes out on top of a giant sea monster, and Ashi is somewhere being is somewhere between confused and impressed. So Freudian imagery from that episode. This was all the episode with a big worm monster.
Yeah, I remember that.
Um I'm trying to think. I don't recall any other aside from that one episode, and even then, I didn't read it as that at the time. I can't really think of any other real Joshy moments um uh before this episode.
Um, what as in like the sword?
Like more it's called like the ship. Just people trying to predict. People are saying that there's foreshadowing, but I have not seen this foreshadowing.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. Um.
I don't know, dude. I just had
It's,
my whole world rocked. This wasn't the episode that I wanted. I wanted an episode with where there was the action kept coming and it won't stop coming, and fed to the rules and hit the ground running. But instead, I just it was like weird awkward moment after weird awkward moment, and it ended with like with a a super long, really kind of unnecessarily long on screen kiss. But maybe might have been foreshadowed here and there, maybe, but the I guess the python is a good example, but that wasn't all that obvious. And it's just it's a real, I mean, I could just go back to what I said before. People, there were a couple of things here and there maybe, but there were people saw them, were excited about a platonic father-daughter relationship for a reason. It's because that's what was implied. And I had all of these theories and expectations for what might happen next, and who are they going to fight, and what's going to happen, and how are they going to kill a coup, and all that was sort of put by the wayside. Like, and it just, and that matters way more to me.
Okay, so after the Oasis scene, the characters move on. They find the alien spaceship that crashed in the prologue of this episode. What follows, a bulk of this episode takes place is that it takes place on this spaceship
that crashed onto the surface of the planet just in the beginning.
I am almost positive that this is that this is meant to be a huge homage to Alien. That being said, Alien is still on my to watch list. I actually bought the DVD recently. I just haven't sat down and watched it yet.
I didn't think it was, as someone who's seen Alien, I didn't think it was that grave an homage to Alien. There weren't that many similarities. That said, you should definitely watch Alien.
I mean, like, the biggest thing is that if this is an Alien homage, it also takes. Wander Over Yonder had an episode that also featured the same plot line, except for instead of in the Wander Over Yonder episode, instead of the big leech monster, it was a it was Captain Peepers or something like that. Whatever the name. It was like this spider-like lip creature. And it was also it had a lot of, that one was probably even more specific, more obviously a Alien homage. And at some point, I think I'm just going to do, just for the heck of it, a big list of Samurai Jack versus Wander Over Yonder episodes as a Tumblr post. I think I've seen enough of my similarities between the shows to justify making an actual list. So yeah,
and one of the first things that happens after they get on the ship is that Ashi is jumped, right? That leech comes out of the wall and hits her on the leg.
Yeah.
Followed by another flag scene with Jack very seductively slobbering all over.
Yeah, anyone, the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. There was an entire thing with Dracula in that episode that I think has kind of ruined any potential of like any
vampires don't suck. They lick and they what was it? They
lick and lap, I think, or something like that.
They what? No, they scrape and they lick. They scrape and they lick.
I mean, whatever it was, oh dear God.
It was definitely scrape and lick.
And see, I think that episode of the, not that I've seen many not that I've seen a lot of seductive leg sucking scenes in movies. I don't think that was a thing until today, though I could be wrong.
Pretty sure that wasn't a thing until today.
I don't think I don't think it came across quite as I don't know, it came across as more funny than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before that scene, before they're attacked by leeches, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because I have one more note here. Because I do think this is relevant to the rest of the episode. And something that I want to talk a little bit more in depth as we go further down. And, because this is the conversation about Jack and Ashi and romance and fiction in general. This leads to a whole bunch of tropes, a lot of which has some unfortunate implications underneath it, or can be read as having unfortunate implications. But something that kind of struck me was Jack saying, Ashi, be careful, and then Ashi going at it anyway with flying colors. This is maybe I should wait till we get a little bit more context for that scene for why I think this is a important moment. But just keep that in mind. That was that is something that stuck out to me. The entire Ashi, be careful.
Yeah, well, Jack was a lot more protective over her. It's true. He was a lot more protective over her this episode. And I think that was part of the growing romance theme they were trying to push. And it was kind of a funny twist, how they started out with Jack being the typical kind of protective male protagonist, and then Ashi completely flipping the script.
Yeah.
And they did that a couple of times, and yeah, I thought it was I thought it was very, very well done. If there was anything in that episode that I liked, it was those parts.
Okay. Well, I mean, I suppose I don't know. I don't know. Like the see, I was going to wait till after the I was going to wait till after the entire overview of the episode to get to this fact, because I think this is probably because the subject has to do with just fiction in general, and Samurai Jack just provides some good examples of this. Unless you want to talk about it now, which we can totally do. I'm just what happens next after that scene? There's a lot of action scenes. There's still a lot to talk about, but it's all, it's the good Samurai Jack stuff. It's stuff that's pretty, you just mention it, and I'm not sure how much we can talk about it. But then there's the romantic aspects of this episode and how they worked with it and all the tropes that it does. And there's like a whole lot of things that can be discussed about this episode in a literary sense because of that. I mean, I will say this: the monster is one of the scariest things I've seen throughout this entire series.
Yeah, it was pretty terrifying. And it seemed all powerful.
Well, I mean, this.
It makes you wonder why they bothered to keep it in prison and not just freaking kill it.
It's a Oh dear. See, I don't know. I have like a thing of I have a thing with needles, and this isn't quite needles, but it's still that terrifying idea of something being stuck in your body.
Mm.
That's still something that like hurts me every time I see it. I always feel a bit of pain myself, because that's how this thing that's how much this bothers me. It was an amazing design. It was like a combination between a hive mind, a character that is made up of a whole bunch of smaller insect things. Think Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
Combined with parasites, which are already pretty freaking scary in themselves. And I've seen both parasitic creatures in films, and I've seen hive mind characters in films. I've never seen them quite combined like this, especially since it was using some of its component creatures as weapons throughout the episode. And it's like, I don't know, it's like, imagine a bee throwing its stingers at you or something like that. I don't know.
No, I get it. It was a really, really creative monster. That's part of the why I say I don't think it was a alien reference. It's not just because I've seen Alien and I don't really see the similarities, but it's also because this monster was just so dang unique. I don't think it was. I don't think you could point at any work of fiction and say that it was a parody of anything. It was amazing. It was terrifying. It was scary. It was all knowing. It was all powerful, and was regenerating. And it was pure evil. And it just and it's like you said, just the idea of existing was just it just makes you uncomfortable. It was a really scary monster, and they did good at that character design portion of the series. And that's sort of what I'm saying about this episode, is that the character design, if nothing else, the character design, the backgrounds were all on point as always. You there?
Hello. Is everything working now? The shoot. The Google Hangouts thing just quit on me just out of nowhere. I cannot hear Dauntless. Hold on, I'm not even sure if she's a part of this. Okay, yeah, she's not even a part of this. Hold on 1 second. Ah, shoot. After this after we finish the stream, I'm obviously going to have to edit this down. Okay, so I'm just waiting for Madeline to get back. She should be back any moment now. Hopefully. Okay. Shoot. Oh, you're live. Your face is on.
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we're streaming again. I'm going to obviously have to edit this later. Google Hangouts just like straight up quit on me.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah. The stream is back on now. Thank God it was able to let me. We are currently live. What were you saying?
What was the last thing you heard me say?
Alien reference.
Okay, so I don't think it was an alien reference, because the creature was so damn creative. It was so interesting and original. There's no, I can't really see it as being a parody of anything, because or a reference of anything else, because there really isn't any other monster quite like it. It was terrifying, just the idea. It's like you said before, even just the idea of it existing made you uncomfortable. It was that, and that's sort of goes along with the entire episode, is that, despite, a little disappointment about what, with a little disappointment with what the episode was about, the backgrounds were beautiful, and the character design was on point.
Yeah. Well, see, the alien reference doesn't necessarily come in with the monster, but more with the setting and how things played out. I've seen people call it call it an alien reference because of that. The monster is definitely original. There's not really much resemblance between there, and I also don't think an alien-like character would exactly be able to make the transition to a Jendi Tartakovsky cartoon without being changed into something else. So the alien themselves was changed, but the setting I felt. I thought it was I thought it was a setting that was supposed to be more of a about reference, and
I guess
also
I could go ahead.
And also I've seen a lot of people just on like Tumblr and YouTube who are mentioning that it's an alien reference, but
That's fair. No, I think that there are a lot of people who just sort of, I mean, I bet their opinions are valid, but I think in this they were sort of grasping at straws. An alien reference would be a lot more claustrophobic than this. The entire point of Alien was that there were hallways filled with vents. The monster could come out at any moment, but you had nowhere to go. And this was the landscape here was a lot more open, which is why I sort of refute that. But
That
it
is
was a.
true.
Oh, go ahead.
This, well, I mean, I was going to say that they straight up use MC Escher as a reference point for some of the backgrounds in this episode.
Oh yeah, I know.
With like the impossible architecture. There's nothing claustrophobic about this at all. If anything, it goes in the opposite direction, making you whatever. Let me look it up. The fear of large spaces. The fear of agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia.
Yeah, agoraphobia. If anything, it attacks more of that feeling. Just
Yeah,
with the vastness and the fear of potentially getting lost and all of those things. It wasn't claustrophobic is not exactly one of the things I would associate with this episode.
I agree.
So yeah. Oh, by the way, Ashi, one of the weapons Ashi uses against this giant worm thing is broken glass from one of the jail cells.
And she really uses it like shuriken. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah. That I love that scene. My mind the entire time there is, how is she not like getting these little tiny cuts on her fingers as she does that?
Oh, she does. She's just immune to pain.
Yeah, I mean, like,
what happens when you have all your nerves burned off at a young age. Oh.
Maybe. Okay, I legitimately didn't think about that until you just said it. Is that the reasoning behind the burning in the beginning? Or do you think that's what that was? Yeah.
Could be.
Okay, because I was never thinking of that, but then you just brought it up, and now that makes a lot more sense than it previously did. Because I know that there was and this is a bit of a digression, but I know that there was supposed to be a bit of a I know that there was supposed to be a bit of a symbolic thing with the characters taking on the skin of a coup.
Mm-hmm.
But even though it's symbolic, I don't see how it actually serves a function when it comes to literally training these little girls to be things. But if it seriously makes it so that they can't feel pain, then I can see that potentially working.
Benefit. Pain is for normal people to live normal lives. It's not for child killers.
Yeah, I mean, I am what's called. Yeesh! I cut my finger the other day opening a can of coconut milk. I don't think I could be able to like just casually pick up a handful of glass and just like shuriken them out.
And like then continue to live your life like it's totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that would be fucked up if true. You're right.
Okay, so towards the end of the episode, we're going. I mean, there's the thing's called the monster is called the Lazarus. Which I realize Lazarus is a biblical reference. Yeah, I know it has to do. I'm not exactly up to date with like with my religious studies or anything like that. I know Lazarus has to do with
rebirth.
Rebirth, coming back to life. And there is a little bit of that with the monster. In that it's a whole bunch of little creatures. This is a creature who can regenerate itself.
Because of many, yeah.
Yeah. Aside from that, I feel like the main reason why they gave that monster its name is because it sounded cool.
I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah. Other notes, because after that note there is the scene where the worm thing eats Ashi's clothes.
Oh yeah, another
Um,
flag. Lack of
um,
a better term.
what's it called? And Jack is freaking out. Jack is freaking out. Jack is freaking out about
I
it.
am completely taking Ashi's side in this. They're about to die. Why does it matter? But yeah, that was a very funny scene.
Um, yeah. And of course, the obvious thing to do in this scenario when you're actually, it does make more sense the more I think about it. Obviously, the obvious thing to do in this scenario is to take off your own clothes and give it to the naked person so that you yourself are naked. But then again, that is very much in character for Jack. Jack is trying to protect other people, and as we've seen throughout this season and the seasons before this, he will put himself in harm's way to protect others, and it's not exactly out of character for him to be doing that. So on one hand, while it can be
It was
one
a little
hand,
bit much, yeah, but it was still in character. We can all agree with that.
yeah. Um, Okay, I think this might actually be a good part to bring in that conversation I was talking about earlier.
Okay, good.
The big bad one, because and we talked a little bit about this before we did the stream. Okay, so there is this, so recently a big trope has been making its way around Tumblr thanks to a video by the media detective, or pop culture detective, that's the name. And it was the born sexy yesterday trope. And that video recently went viral. I've seen a lot of it on Tumblr. I personally had my own reaction to the thing. Um there are a lot of people who are saying that this episode um is a example of that trope.
I completely disagree because the entire point of Born Sexy Yesterday is that you have a man who's, perfectly normal and only and really can't and is so average that he can't find someone on his own level, and a girl who is sexy but wise but naive. It's sort of the way you would describe a child, but it's in a grown woman's body, which it sort of has some pedophilic implications. And it's great. I mean, it's great that the trope is making its way around. I'm glad that people are sort of really acknowledging it now. But I don't think it applies to Ashi and Jack at all, because Jack is sort of the chosen one in his own right, which disqualifies him as the male portion of that relationship, and Ashi is totally on his level, which disqualifies her as the female portion of that relationship. I think the only reason people stuck with that is because it's just a popular thing that's going around right now, and there's is that scene where Ashi has her clothes eaten off and doesn't care about it, and that's something that the video brought up, is this trope of women don't grown women with the minds of children who don't really know what's bad about being naked, but everyone else does, wink wink. And this isn't even that is just contextually not matching up, because sort of in this episode, Ashi was only really was incredulous about Jack, because they were being eaten. They were being actively being murdered at the moment. You would think that would matter a little less, when whether you're naked or not would matter a little less when you're about to die. So I understand why people are making the connection, but contextually it doesn't match up.
Okay. See, I'm going to say this because I'm kind of with you on that, but I also think that this resembles a trope enough that I can kind of understand why people are irritated by it. Some of the things that I feel like some of the reasons that I feel people are so irritated by this is we still have a few moments in this episode where Jack treats Ashi like a child.
Because she is compared to him. He's over 50
Yeah.
years old, and it's not, and that's not a bad thing. In a parent-child relationship, that's totally fine.
And there's yeah, and I was going to mention that that specific episode earlier with Ashi, be careful, and then Ashi proves herself to be perfectly capable. There's also the idea that the character's naivety to be naked is usually okay, did you hear any of that?
No.
Okay, well, what happened is I just stopped because freaking adware. Like it's like I'm taught, oh, you've been selected to be a part of this, whatever, blah blah blah. I digress.
And then you were just like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. It's okay. So it didn't appear on the stream.
No.
Okay, just making sure. Okay. So back to what I was saying. The naivety to the fact that the character usually feels comfortable being naked, doesn't see what's wrong with being naked. That's usually played up for fan service, and
right.
We do see a little bit of that here.
Yeah, well, that's true, but that it's not because of that trope. It's because this is Adult Swim, guys. Did you forget? It's Adult Swim. We can do this now because we're on Adult Swim. It wasn't because of any sort of a trope. It's just it's a contextual thing. It's not seeing if you yes, and this trope, there's women, the writers you can use the trope as an excuse to have a woman get naked and not care about it. And in this episode, a woman gets naked and doesn't care about it, but they're for two different reasons. Over on the left, it's because they're a child and it's pedophilic, and they're with the only man they know and could possibly be have any kind of an emotional relationship with, because it's the only man they know. Over here on the right, it's because they're actively getting murdered. And Ashi just thinks that there are more important things going on.
Okay, and then
so it's a contextual thing.
Okay. Now, something I think we ended up agreeing on towards the beginning of the stream before we actually streamed was that it really is more of a matter, something that this show does do different than a lot of shows that do utilize this trope, whether you consider this trope to be applicable to this episode or not, is that there is the way the show goes. It places Jack and Ashi, it treats them as equals.
Right, and that's the main thing that disqualifies this from that trope, is that they're treated as equals.
That's like I'm not sure if it's necessarily the case with how Jack sees everything, but the way we watch things, it feels like both characters have an equal amount of what's the word? I can't remember the word.
Well, there's this idea of male gaze, and I feel like this is sort of related to that. The gaze of the audience is on both of them.
Yeah.
You really strongly empathize with Ashi because you know her story, and we weren't all raised in a cave, but some parts of her story are relatable, and we like her, and we want her to succeed, and she has a genuine character arc that the audience can connect to, and so the gaze is on her just as much as the audience, the audience's gaze is on Jack, which equally we know his story and we like him and we want him to succeed.
Agency, that's the word I was forgetting. Each character is given each character has agency over their actions. I feel like everything that I feel like they're awkward at the same time, and they're they act they know what they're doing at the same time. They're not this weird not balanced thing. Both characters are made to be completely capable throughout the entire thing, and certainly helping things out is Ashi has her own character arc going on. Heck, we just hit a in the previous episode, we just hit one of the biggest parts of her character arc where she straight up kills her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And she has straight up jumped from the side of evil, so to speak, to the side of good.
Right.
So something that makes me really happy about this show, and if I could bring up a comparison somewhere else, while there is obviously a definite amount of sexuality applied to Ashi's character, and while the show does attempt to sexualize her in some way, she's given a character.
Right. That's,
and
that's really more important. The main argument against making female characters naturally sexy that way is that they were all that would eventually become their character, and that would be all that mattered, and it was just sort of a way for the writers to be lazy and just use this character as a prop. But Ashi does not fit that box at all, because she does have a story that matters, and whether the writers make her out to be sexy on the side is really made to be irrelevant, because we like her, and we like her for reasons that aren't her perpetual lipstick that never seems to rub off.
Yeah, just as a comparison to another show that I don't think quite does it as well. And it's probably one of the only parts of the show that I don't like. How familiar are you with Star versus the Forces of Evil?
I watch it through you. I watch it vicariously through you. I enjoy it. I enjoy your posts about it. I enjoy it. I enjoy it when you enjoy it.
Okay.
I've never seen a single episode, but I've seen your posts about the episodes.
Okay,
that's really the same, isn't it?
Okay, well, one of the big issues with the show. This is one of my favorite shows, I should mention, but this is one of my biggest criticisms. This is one of my criticisms about this show is that the character of Jackie in that show, who is treated as she is treated by the show as a rival love interest to the title character Star, for Marco Diaz. While Star and Marco are both reasonably developed, Star with decently written story arcs, Jackie seems to be lacking one. And while not every single character in a work of fiction needs to be, completely 3D in every aspect of life, because Jackie is played as a potential love interest, it's kind of irritating that we don't know that much about her.
Right.
The biggest thing with Jackie is, even though this show is compared to Samurai Jack, this show is meant for a much younger audience, and thus Jackie isn't exactly sexualized in any specific way. I still feel like this is a more accurate a more accurate depiction of objectifying a character than what Samurai Jack does.
I agree. Because, no, it's you're right. It is. It stands out a lot more when it's potential love interest, because you would expect the writers to want the audience to fall in love with this character as a potential love interest. If this is a potential love interest, then this is the character that the main character, the protagonist, will be spending most of their time with, and so you would think that it would be very important to show their story and to show their character and to show why the protagonist likes them. But instead, more often than not, they just overdraw. They overdevelop their eyes I'm doing a nudge at Jackie here, and they just have them kind of sit that they're like a lampshade. It doesn't make much sense. It's more than a sexual, like a sexist thing. It's less of a sexist thing and more of a writer plot hole. It's sort of more of a writer flaw.
Yeah. At the very least, I like Ashi, and even though I don't particularly care for this ship, it's nice seeing Jack and Ashi, be happy together because, I've seen these characters go through a lot of pain and issues like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're seeing them go through something good, it's
It's
even though it's
refreshing.
yeah, even though it's not something I don't really care for this ship at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's still nice to see them happy, and at the very least, it doesn't go into like the same creepy territory other works of fiction does.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. And I rag on a lot about this episode, and how much time they spent on the weird relationship, awkward moments. But they you're right. They're in the end of this, and in the end when I watched this episode, none of that mattered to me really. What mattered was that I liked Ashi and I liked Jack, and I I may not have expected the two of them together, but I wasn't I wasn't I I wasn't unhappy to see them together. Does that make sense? Even though I didn't ship them, it's sort of like the way you put it. That it was nice seeing them happy, and that's
Yeah.
sort of the feeling I got at the end of the episode too.
Okay. So just I think we're pretty close to wrapping up. What happens after the entire leaf dress thing, which is what sprung this? Um Jack and Ashi figure out the little code for the little weapon that they found. It electrocutes all of the the little leech things. Um there is this is the scene that felt very painful to me, where the leech things are just like popping as they're like attached to Jack and Ashi's skin. Um
Oh yeah, and it's very
yeah,
obviously
that's
extremely painful.
um uh yeah. Um yeah, the and then after this particularly horrific scene, I'm almost done. After this particularly horrific scene, um Jack and them up Jack and Ashi share an awkward stare with each other, and then they kiss. Oh,
Of
actually, it's
course.
less kissing and more of like this long extended makeout session that fades to black for a second, then it comes back on, and you're like, they're still kissing.
You're still
And
doing it?
yep,
Where's the action?
the song, the instead we hear a completely different song at the end. Um uh
Oh, it was a great pick.
yeah, shoot, I should have made note of what that episode of that what that was. It was a good song. I really liked it.
Me too.
Um, I wasn't expect, and it's a real song. I know that it's not like it wasn't composed just for the show.
Yeah, no, it's an oldie. It's an oldie
Yeah,
but a goodie.
it felt
It was I think it was called Everyone Falls in Love.
yeah, it was called hold on, I brought up the wrong episode. It's the Roman numerals.
Ooh, they get you every time.
Yep. So I'm okay. The actual song is called it's called it's Everybody Loves Somebody by Dean Martin.
Mm.
This is the first time we don't hear Will I Am rapping at the end. Um and and then the episode ends. So yeah, all in all, is there anything else worth mentioning? I mean, I feel like we talked mostly about it. I have to kind of go pretty soon, actually.
No, I'm the same way, and this is a good stopping point. And I guess last thoughts. I guess I can just sort of summarize my feelings on it. No, it's not what I wanted. No, it's not what I expected. It's definitely not what I wanted. But I'm still I was still just as satisfied with it as I've been with. Maybe not just as satisfied. That's going a little far. I would give it a 4 out of 10 on the Samurai Jack episode scale. Um, I still liked it because, like I said, the characters were great as always. The backgrounds were lovely as always, and I loved Jack, and I loved watching Ashi just as much as I always do.
All right. A similar thing with me. Favorite, but I'm not gonna stop watching the show anytime soon. The show is
Right.
just too good for me to not watch. So, I suppose that's good night for
All
everyone.
right. Well, we didn't get to introduce ourselves. I guess we could introduce ourselves.
Oh yeah,
Just sort of saying goodbye.
oh yeah. As always, I am Tom Raster, otherwise known as Inline Robot, and you are.
I am Dauntless. Voice made for silent movies. That's Tower and Shining Armor on Tumblr.
All right. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.